Brought to you by Conduit Media Group.
We are back. I apologize for that. Here on the Paul Harrell program, still learning how to do live radio. I've got Senator Scott Flippo on the phone. Senator Flippo, how are you doing?
Richard, I'm doing well, thank you. You sound like you might be getting ready to get the permanent slot of Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, I don't
Has
think
called
so.
and extended the offer yet, or are you still kind of in the negotiating process?
Definitely negotiating, and it didn't help having 10 seconds of dead air there. So I apologize, everyone.
Leave them in suspense.
That's right. Everybody's like, oh, what's going on? I don't know. We should turn up the radio, and then they get to hear our voice. So, no problem we can't recover from. This is Richard Castor, everyone. I'm filling in for Paul Harrell. You're listening to the Paul Harrell program, and we have the stalwart of conservatism in the state legislature, Senator Scott Flippo. Senator Flippo's on the phone with us. How are you doing, good sir?
Well, now that I'm the stalwart of conservatism, I feel like I've got a big burden on my shoulders.
Well, you carry it beautifully.
Those are some big shoes to fill, Richard. I'm doing well, thank you. I'm happy to be with you all this evening.
Thank you. So you got a bill vetoed by the governor somehow while you were down there this past session.
Yes.
Why don't you tell us about that? What was this
rare
bill?
Company.
That's right.
Yeah, the bill was a bill that was going to remove. It was Senate Bill 496, and what it was a bill to remove from the purview of the ABC, the Alcohol Beverage Commission, the authority to enforce state gaming laws. And I think a lot of your listeners, and certainly I've talked to a lot of people since I filed the bill, and think, why would you want to remove enforcement capacity from a state law enforcement agency to enforce a state law? Mm-hmm. And that's a reasonable question. Mm-hmm. And so the reason that I ran the bill was the ABC had been up into Baxter County and other areas of my district, and they had been going into the Elks Club and VFWs and kind of giving them a hard time over how they were doing their charity bingo. And they basically gave them an ultimatum and says, you either got to get rid of these machines and quit doing it, or you lose your liquor license. Mm. And that did not sit well with me. And so, seeing as I do not work for the executive branch, I work in the legislative branch. What's in my authority is to run bills to try to change laws. And so that's exactly what I did. And, we were able to get it through the Senate, and it was an uphill battle in the House. We passed it by just 2 votes, and then the governor vetoes it.
Wow. And so explain kind of the practicality of this bill. So the way I understand it, gambling is illegal in the state of Arkansas unless you're Oaklawn or unless you want to race dogs over by Memphis. But then the state also issues these little, we've all seen them. I used to go to bingo with my grandma all the time. You buy these little poll cards and, I don't know, they're $1 or 25 cents. And
exactly.
You win. If you win, you win a little bit of money, but generally it's gambling, so you don't win. And the proceeds, when you buy them from the VFW or wherever, they go to charity, right? And so
they go to charity.
That's really what this bill is about. So now the ABC has come in and said, well, these machines are illegal. You can't have them. But wait, if your county is dry, you can? Is that how I'm understanding it?
You are understanding it correctly. It is that simple. So the ABC does not have the enforcement capacity in areas or organizations that do not have a liquor permit. And so what that is in turn left to is local prosecutors and law enforcement. And so, I think that probably would have been happening. Maybe these machines are, there may be some technicalities there that make them illegal, but they are exactly that, technicalities. Mm-hmm. And the state has been allowing them to operate like this for years, decades. And all of a sudden, we had Amendment 84, about 6-8 years ago that actually legalized, charity bingo and poker tournaments that the Elks Club and VFWs and other organizations have. And so they hadn't had any problem. And so they all assumed that they're operating in accordance with law. And all of a sudden, they've got a state agency coming up and saying, and basically thumbing their nose at them and saying, no, you're not, and if you don't do it my way, we're going to pull your liquor permits. Now you can go over to a dry county if a VFW else doesn't have a liquor permit, and I think most of them do, but there's some that don't. Mm-hmm. No problems. And so I kind of felt like there is no local prosecutor or or sheriff that's going to go in your Elks Club or VFWs and hassle them over playing charity bingo. You know, we have the amendments to the Constitution that allows it. And maybe what they were doing was just the machine. There might have been something with the machine that made it illegal. But again, it's a technicality because it's still doing the same thing, the same result. Mm-hmm. And hardly a reason to give these people a hard time. And so that's why I wanted to run the bill. And I was disappointed to see the governor veto it. And I've been in conversations with his office and the ABC board to see what we can do to bring it to a satisfactory conclusion. And if we can't, then I will plan on moving forward with a veto. Overriding the veto.
Oh, wow. Big news right here on the Paul Harrell program with Senator Scott Flippo. Did the governor have any vetoes overridden this session? Was this his only veto?
Richard?
Yeah.
He vetoed, I want to say it was 5 bills, 5 or 6 bills this session.
Okay.
And that was out of almost 1,000 bills passed into law. So it's very rare when the governor vetoes a bill. And a lot of times if he doesn't like something, he'll simply let it become law without his signature.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
And so, you know, that was something where I had the governor's office never expressed any concern to me about this bill.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, I was kind of caught off guard, and I felt like maybe if we could have had some of these conversations a couple months ago, we might have been able to avoid the whole process altogether. But that's not the way that things planned out.
Absolutely.
And what's the most important thing to me is that whatever the state comes up with, is that it needs to be something that is satisfactory to my folks back home in District 17. Because, you know, I didn't run the bill for me, I ran it for them. And so, you know, as I've told the governor and some of his office and staffers in his office and the ABC board is, don't worry about, you know, placating Scott Flippo. Worry about satisfying the concerns of the people in District 17.
Right, absolutely. And I think we would all hope that the governor would, you know, worry more about the people who live in the state of Arkansas than he would worrying about just trying to veto one of your bills, because maybe he doesn't like you that much, because maybe you don't vote the way he always wants you to.
I've kind of got that reputation, Richard. And, you know, again, I tell people this quite a bit, is that, you know, although technically I am a state employee, however, I don't serve at the pleasure of the state or the executive branch. I serve at the pleasure of the people, and specifically the people in District 17. So I'm in Little Rock to be their voice and nobody else's.
Absolutely.
And I don't take kindly if they've got a state agency coming up here and give them a hard time for no good reason.
Absolutely.
You know, these folks, the Elks Clubs, the VFWs, they are not causing problems in our communities. They are not what's wrong. And I think that the state just needs to leave them the heck alone.
I agree. I think a lot of people agree with you. You're listening to Senator Scott Flippo right here on the Paul Harrell program. We are live throughout the state of Arkansas and right here in your home district, Senator Flippo, Mountain Home, Arkansas.
I'm so excited.
Absolutely. We just started airing right here on the 5 o'clock hour here in Mountain Home. This is Richard Castor sitting in for Paul Harrell, and thank you for joining us this evening on your commute home. So we're talking to Senator Flippo about these little gambling machines in the local VFWs and these little fraternal organizations. Well, they're not little, they're big, and they're very important to our community. And the ABC coming in and saying, no, you can't, and that's the Alcohol Beverage Control Department of
Board. Correct.
Board, I'm sorry. And so they've come in and said this, but while they're saying it's illegal, the state is also collecting fees on these same machines in other areas of the state. So the way I understand how law should work when you read our founding documents is equal protection under the law, right? It should be one set of understandable rules for everyone to abide by. That doesn't seem like what's going on here. And I don't know how the government can say, these are illegal, we're taking them from you, and then charge John Smith down the road money for using it. If it's an illegal practice, the government can't collect fees off of it, or they're practicing racketeering. The definition of racketeering is generating funds from illegal activity. And so I have to ask you, Senator Flippo, is that what's happening?
It's that simple, Richard, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. Yeah. I'm still trying to get an answer out of DFNA, Department of Finance Administration, to see exactly how it is that they're able to collect sales tax revenues and issue and collect permit fees and other things off these machines, and then turn around and, on the other hand, go around and say that they're illegal. And I think there's a lot of gray areas with the state's gaming laws, and certainly I think they've been worked to benefit Oaklawn and Southland Gaming over in West Memphis, and those organizations have been there for a long time. I don't think anybody has a problem with those places. But when it starts impacting your local fraternal benevolent organizations, your Elks clubs and VFWs, and then they're starting to get hassled over some technicalities, I don't think that just doesn't sit well with me. I don't think that it will sit well with the majority of people in this state. And the fact that the state is collecting revenues off of these machines, how can you collect revenues off of something that you deem to be illegal? And I've never thought myself to be the sharpest person in the room, but I got common sense, and I think that takes you a long way. And so, that's one of the issues that I've raised, and I'm still waiting to get some definitive answers back from them. But it doesn't pass the sniff test. Right. I'll tell you that.
Right, absolutely. If you agree with Senator Flippo, text me at 870-421-9684. And I'm interested in what the people have to say about this, because it's a very important issue. These VFW halls, these fraternal halls, they're really, these organizations, these communal organizations are a firm bedrock of our community who do a lot of good in our community.
A ton of good.
Absolutely. And for the government to come in and just start poking at them for no good reason is a little bit absurd to me. So I applaud you, Senator.
And again, I want to be clear here. I can't say that I know that the governor actually knew, what was going on with the ABC and how they were doing things. But certainly, as the chief, he's the governor and the chief executive, and so these agencies fall under his purview. But again, certainly somebody in his office could have reached out to me and gotten the story from me, and I would have been happy to during this past legislative session. But that didn't happen. And, and I do want to be clear that they are, communicating with me now, and the ABC board is certainly communicating with me now. And, again, they're trying to come up with something that's going to be agreeable to me. But as I said earlier, it's not just satisfying me, it's satisfying the people back home. And when I say back home, I guess I got to clarify that and say that the people across the state, because Baxter County, Marion County, Boone County, they're not the only places with a Elks Club or a VFW post or an Eagles post. These places are all over the state, and so what people want is they want fairness. And as I told one of the governor's staffers earlier this week, I said, unless you've got a group of Elks or veterans walking around at 2 o'clock in the morning and kicking in doors and breaking kneecaps because you have an outstanding bingo debt, we ought to leave them alone.
Absolutely.
These are people that are doing this for charity. These organizations, they're not preying on the disadvantaged, right? The disenfranchised, the poor. So that's not what's going on in these cases. And these are things that they're doing to raise money for charity. They don't pay anything for the operations of these tournaments, of these bingo tournaments or poker tournaments. And even though these machines, I guess they wouldn't apply to these, their charity poker tournaments.
Right.
But Richard, it just seems to me that common sense was not followed here.
Absolutely.
And so now what I want, or what my folks back home want, and they've been talking to me and asking me is, well, now that they've kind of let the genie out of the bottle, now we want something clarified in law. Now we want something in writing.
Absolutely.
We just don't want a gentleman's agreement, a wink and a nod and an assurance that, well, we're not going to mess with you.
Absolutely.
Well, that's too late for that. So they want, and I don't blame them.
Yep, I'm getting, my phone is blowing up right now. People agreeing with you, Senator. But we got to go to commercial break. So you want to stay through the break with us? Have one more minute at the end?
Absolutely.
Okay, stay with us, Senator Flippo. We're going to head to break. Stay with us, everyone listening.
is gone.
All right, it is Johnny Cash Friday here on the Paul Harrell program. This is Richard Castor coming to you from the Mountain Talk Studios in Mountain Home, Arkansas, and we have Senator Scott Flippo on the phone with us. Senator Flippo, thank you so much for joining us and for being such a strong voice in the legislature. You said during the commercial break you wanted to mention some supporters and allies you have with you down in Little Rock.
And one very important that it wasn't just I that was advocating for this bill or working to get support to pass this bill. Representative Speaks there in Mountain Home. Representative Jack Portner over in Marion County, covers part of Baxter County. Senator Missy Irvin, who's got parts of Baxter and Marion County, and and a whole host of other legislators, help support this bill. And so, your listeners can go to the legislative website and look at Senate and type in Senate Bill 496. And it'll pull up, who supported it in the House and who supported it in the Senate. But I certainly want to make sure that the listeners back home know that, that most of their, if not all of their local legislators supported this bill.
Absolutely. And I will say to everyone listening across the state, if this bill is important to you, if you want to support our local fraternal organizations, get ready to get mobilized, because if the governor won't budge, it's going to take us to come out in full swing to show them that this state government should support bills that are, someone texted me, a law should be fair for all, equally, across the board, and that's not what's happening here.
And Richard, that's it. And
absolutely.
I want to be clear that, what these places are doing, they're not running the casino and the Elks Club or the VFWs. They're playing charity bingo and charity poker.
Mm-hmm.
I just be very clear about that. They're not shooting craps or having a roulette table or any of that. I mean, what they're doing is they're raising money to help, local charity organizations or even a statewide organization. I know that I think the Elks have sent money to, Children's Hospital down in Little Rock.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not waiting for a new government program to come around or a new funding stream to come into fruition. They're being proactive and taking action and looking to address, to raise money for their local communities.
Absolutely.
And so whether whatever your personal, thoughts are or opinions are on bingo.
Absolutely. All right, I got a hard break, Senator.
Raising money for your community.
All right. Thank you so much, Senator Scott Flippo, here on the Paul Harrell program. Everyone else, stay with us.